Oh YouTube, what's really good? My name is Vivid, and the first thing I want to say before we even get into this video is this video should for the most part be spoiler free. The only things we'll be going over is Pokemon that are returning from past generations that actually made the Galar Dex. The point of this video is for me to give you some ideas, or at least these are my ideas, of 10 Pokemon that I think get better due to the fact that it's a smaller Pokedex. As I'm sure pretty much everybody knows, the Dex is about 400 Pokemon. It's 400 Pokemon, like no more, no less. So a lot of Pokemon got cut, which just the sheer nature of that means a lot of Pokemon that are included are just going to be better, right? Like we can all essentially understand that. So in a way, I could just say every Pokemon included from a past generation got better. But these are 10 Pokemon, I think specifically, especially Pokemon that weren't perceived as fantastic for one reason or another in the past generations. These are Pokemon that I think will get, I guess, like better by a higher percentage than other Pokemon, if that makes sense. And you know, I have my reasons. They might not be the best, and I'm not going to go too in depth into every Pokemon just because that would be a very long video. I'm just here to sort of like quickly give you 10 Pokemon that I think get better. So before we get into this, I also want to say I'm not here claiming to be the best competitive battler. A lot of my experience is biased towards draft leagues. That's what I do the most of. But I think there is enough overlap between different formats. So sort of like showdown laddering, draft league, VGC, and then just like battle spot. I think there's enough overlap, in my opinion, between these that a lot of these Pokemon will just be better in those respective formats. And I know the value of Pokemon changes dramatically depending on what format you're playing in, but still, I just think, I don't know. Anyways, we're not talking about specific formats. Like if it's more format specific, I'll mention it because there are a few on here that I just have like a draft eye for. But for the most part, these are just generic choices. Okay, I think you got it. We've figured it out. Okay, so let's just, get to the list. Okay, so Pokemon number 1 is very biased. Not that it's biased towards being great in Draft League in the upcoming, meta. It's just biased because I like it a lot more than I should, and I do because it is a mushroom. So you can probably guess that number 1 is Shiinotic. I just think that mushrooms are kind of neat in real life, so I've always really liked mushroom Pokemon, but I think the fact that it is a mushroom sort of lends itself to it being better because, if you do not know, there is a move called Sport, and it's a 100% accurate sleep move, so it never misses, and it only fails on grass types, or I guess, Pokemon with, is it Magic Bounce? Things like that, or things that can't be put to sleep. It's almost always going to put something to sleep. And Shiinotic is the only mushroom Pokemon in the Pokedex. There is no Paras and Parasect, no Breloom, and Shroomish. I had to think about that one. And then the big ones are Fungus and Amoonguss. So those are not in the Galar Dex, which means unless Pokemon increases the distribution of Spore, which I kind of hope they don't because I think it's really cool that it's this move that is tied to the specific type of Pokemon, we're not getting, unless they increase the distribution, we're not getting a bunch of Spore Pokemon. Really just Shiinotic. It also has reasonable bulk and just kind of like a neat techie move pool with things like Strength Sap, and Leech Seed. That's where the Phantom L came from. Anyways, I just think Shiinotic gets a little bit better. It could get a lot better. I mean, it has a decent chunk of weaknesses, but I think just being the only Pokemon in the game with 100% accurate sleep move bodes well. So yeah, Shiinotic number 1. All right, so the number 2 Pokemon on the list is going to be Mantine, and it is here for much less specific reasons. I don't think that it's going to be good because it gets access to a specific move, really. I think that it is just getting better for more generic reasons. 1, it's a decent bulky water type, and a good chunk of bulky waters got cut, as I'm sure you could guess. But 2, it is also, not only is it a decent bulky water, but it also is a very good special wall. And a lot of sort of the generic special walls are not making the cut. And by generic, I really just mean like Chansey and Blissey. They're no longer here. And Mantine has a really fat special defense stat, and as long as you pair it with something that can eat up electric type attacks, I think it'll be fine. It also gets access to recovery and removal, and its dual stabs are good at just chipping things down while making sure it can stay healthy with Roost and keep rocks off the field with Defog. So, I mean, assuming all of these things work, as they did in past generations. I should have said that at the beginning. We're here under the assumption that everything is still working more or less the same in terms of moves and distribution of moves and so on and so forth. Okay, number 3 on the list is going to be Flygon for a very simple reason. Garchomp's not in the game. I think Flygon actually gets a chance to shine in that format. Out of all the returning dragons, so all the returning dragons except Noivern, I think I can say this and it's correct, it's the fastest, because they all sort of have like speed tiers that are right under 100, or if they're not right under 100, they're pretty soundly under 100. Noivern's the only one that's faster. But not only that, it's got the dragon ground type, so that's great. So it's immune to electric. It has levitate, so it's immune to ground. It has really good dual stab, and in the last generation, it got access to Dragon Dance. So again, assuming that those things move forward, it has access to Dragon Dance, U-turn, defog, good dual stabs. I think Flygon gets a shot here to be exponentially better than it has been in past generations. It's not like it's been bad. I just think that it gets a sort of like uptick, if that makes sense. The next Pokemon number 4 is one that I think you can argue it's already very good, at least if you're coming at it from, again, my bias here is playing in draft leagues. It's very good in draft leagues, and that's Weavile. Weavile has a great offensive sort of like dual stab, great offensive presence. It's just a glass cannon. A lot of Weavile's a lot of the things that checked Weavile are things that outspeed it. What I'm trying to say is a lot of the Pokemon that could check it offensively are no longer around, and I think the general bulk of this generation has gone down. Like, there aren't a lot of Pokemon that can switch into that dual stab combination in the last generation, but especially in this one. So I think Weavile gets some positioning points, probably as one of the better offensive threats. And I'm gonna throw this out there. I think alongside like maybe Crawdaunt, it will be the best knockoff user in the game. I was looking for Pokemon that get access to knockoff before recording this, and I'm pretty sure Weavile and Crawdaunt's will hit harder, but it's much slower. I think those are going to be the best 2 in the game. So, okay, that's done. Okay, so number 5 is going to be really biased of me. I do think this Pokemon gets a decent number of percentage points. But again, like I said, every Pokemon does, so maybe it's not enough. But I think Volley really gets better in the generational shift. It kind of does everything, and it does everything okay. It's never going to be the star on your team, but I mean, this is going to be, again, I think this is more towards draft. Like, I'm in a place where if I was drafting tomorrow, I would 2nd or 3rd pick Volley, probably. It does everything. So again, Volley's not going to be good in VGC. In VGC, everything needs a specific purpose. I could see it being good in singles as like, I don't know, like the best steel type for a specific tier or something like that. I just think that all the different Volley forms get better because there's a Volley form for every type in the game. They all have a good attack. I mean, multi-attack, is that what it's called? Multi-attack? Whatever. They all have like a good stab move, and they all have sort of like setup, etc., etc. They all can do everything okay. I'm probably going to catch some flack for this, but I think Volley gets better just because it does everything okay. All right, number 6 is a Pokemon that I think gets probably a lot better. I mean, it's seen like glimmers of high-level use here and there, but Seismitoad, it gets a lot better. There is a decent chunk of water ground types, but it's one of the returning water ground types. It gets access to Swift Swim, so it will probably make a good abuser of rain, which is present. And I do talk about this a little bit later, or not talk about, I'm not scripted here, we're kind of just like rambling. I'm going to talk about this a little later, but I think a lot of the weather abusers probably get better because the list of them is very limited. Aside from being a weather abuser though, I think it also gets better just because it has a great defensive typing and a really vast move pool. And assuming that hazards still work the same, it gets access to Stealth Rocks. So I think Seismitoad will be good. I think this is one of the Pokemon that gets better, like not only offensively, but defensively. So if you want to play it defensively, great. It's got the stats and typing for that. If you want to play it offensively, great. It's got the ability and presumably some I guess uses for that. So Seismitoad, I think it's better. All right, number 7 is a Pokemon. It's a weird one. When I was looking through the list, I saw it and it just kept sticking out to me. I think that this Pokemon gets better, 1, because of its ability, 2, because it's going to be, if I've done my homework correctly, I think one of the faster psychic types, and that's Espeon. So in the past, sort of your psychic type revenge killers were basically exclusively like Alakazam, right? Like Alakazam, Mega Alakazam, and like Mega Gallade. Mega Gallade and Mega Gardevoir. Gardevoir and Gallade lose their Megas. Alakazam didn't even make the cut. Espeon's got a great speed stat. I think, again, if I've done my homework correctly, it's one of the fastest psychic types in the decks. I think Espeon gets better. One, its ability is very good, so it can play sort of like as a Calm Mind or just some kind of like sweeper. You'd have to invest probably more bulk. Like Espeon's not very bulky, especially physically bulky. The moral of the story is it has a good ability, it's fast, and its move pool is decent. Like its move pool has kind of always been the thing that's held it back. I just don't think that's going to matter as much in this generation where the dex is cut by infinity Pokemon. I don't know. I think Espeon gets better. That's all I'm getting at. It stuck out to me when I was looking at it because it's very strong. Like I think it has like 130 base special attack, and it's very fast, like 110 base speed. And then its SpDef is fine, and then every other stat's mediocre to bad. But still, I think Espeon gets better. So do with that information what you will. All right, so number 8, I held up 10 fingers, but I'm not doing the finger thing anymore. It's getting too awkward. Number 8, and I mentioned this earlier that I think that a lot of the weather abusers get better, and I'm gonna talk about that a little bit right now, in that I think a lot of the weather abusers get better, but I'm not going to list every single one of them. I think Seismitoad was kind of a special case because it can be offensive or defensive, and the offensive aspect of it is the weather. This Pokemon is almost purely just like only offense, but it's sort of like the weather jack of all trades. So it's Heliolisk. I think Heliolisk gets better because, like I said, it can use all the weathers except for hail. So it gets Sand Veil, so it can increase its evasion in sand. It gets solar power, so it can hit harder at the cost of some life in sun. And I'm sure those calcs look absurd if you start running them like Life Orb or Choice Specs, Heliolisk in sun. Just run those calcs. I'm sure they are absurd. And then it heals itself in rain with Dry Skin. So I think that this Pokemon will find uses. It's also just a decent electric type, as is. It has a good speed tier, fast electric types. They're kind of like a staple of every metagame. And on top of that, it also has a secondary stab in normal, which is really cool because if things can switch into electric type attacks, they probably can't switch into normal. That just doesn't happen super often. Like Steel Grounds is the only thing I can think of. But it also gets access to like a pretty wide variety of coverage moves, being like Surf, Dark Pulse, Signal Beam, and then it gets, I think, a few tech moves like Glare, things that it can use on its kit to really sort of like press an advantage. So I think Heliolisk gets better here. I could be wrong. This might be a reach, but I think it probably gets a lot better. All right, number 9 is maybe like a point of contention, and I think that the Hitmons get better, but more specifically Hitmontop and Hitmonlee. Hitmonchan a little bit, but more specifically the other two. I think that the Hitmons get better as spinners. Hitmonlee, I think, gets better as like a very offensive spinner because it can do sort of the Reckless or the Unburden thing, and it can do both those things pretty well. And then Hitmontop it can be offensive with like a weird technician set, and I love those Hitmontops. I have a soft spot for them, but it's also good as sort of like the defensive spinner, like coming on something physical, intimidate it, you resist the rocks, you spin the rocks away, or whatever hazard you're trying to get rid of. This is probably, I think, maybe the loosest pick I have, just because I could see these seeing the exact same amount of use that they do now and just being kind of like, they're okay. But I think specifically Hitmontop and Hitmonlee will get better. And then number 10, I did the finger thing that time. The last Pokemon on the list, and this one is more of a case of it is replacing a void, is going to be Drapion. So Drapion is a Pokemon that has the very good Poison, Dark typing, so its only weakness is Ground. Other than that, it has, decent resistances, a lot of neutralities, but its stats are also they're just like decent. It's got like a decent speed tier, a decent defense stat. I don't think its SpDef stat is great, but you can Assault Vest it. It has an okay attack stat. It gets Toxic Spikes. It is a decent knockoff user, so not where it's not going to be hitting incredibly hard like Weavile or Crawdaunt, but I think this thing probably gets a decent amount better. Just because, one, the typing is very good. Poison dark types, historically good, great typing. I just have a feeling that Drapion gets better here. All right, so that's it. That is the list. I hope you found it entertaining at the very least, but also kind of informative. I'm not saying that these Pokemon are going to be top tier threats. I don't think that. I think some of these Pokemon will just get more percentage points moving forward. And these are the ones that I saw that I thought got the highest amount of percentage points in their favor with the generational shift. That being said, if you have a different list, let me know. Leave it in the comment section down below. It can be 1, 5, 27, however many Pokemon you think get better, just let me know. I mean, I would ask everybody to at least leave your number 1 Pokemon that you think gets much better through the shift, but you know, just leave a list. We'll talk about it. That's it. That's all I have for you. If you enjoyed this, please leave a like on the video. Please subscribe. We'll be doing some Sword and Shield stuff on here, you know, soon-ish. So, you know, subscribe, turn notifications on, all of that. I love you, I guess. Follow me on Twitter. We can talk there too. And then follow me on all of my social medias. Basically, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. That's where you'll keep up with me. So do those things, and then let's talk in the comment section down below. And if you hate my list, tell me that too. But that being said, I think that I'm all out of things to talk about. I could ramble here for a minute, but I won't waste time. Okay, all right. I'm kind of done here. I gotta leave. Bye.
So tell me something.